It began with nothing more than a flicker of desperation, the kind of quiet hunger that gnaws at you when your pockets are empty, but your head is full of ideas. I was not born into wealth, nor did I stumble across some lucky windfall. The truth is far less romantic, and perhaps more dangerous. I found a shortcut, a cheat, not the kind written into a game manual, but the kind whispered in back rooms, hidden in plain sight, where only those with sharp enough eyes notice the cracks in the system. And when I found it, I slipped through without hesitation. The world has always rewarded those who can bend the rules without breaking them outright. That was the first lesson I learned. I had been working at a job that drained me to the bone, barely keeping the lights on, and I saw men with no more intelligence than I flaunting cars, suits, and lives built on advantages they would never admit to. The resentment in me sharpened into determination. If there was a way they had taken, I would find it too. The so-called classic cheat was not something I invented, but something as old as trade itself. The art of using what others overlook, exploiting a loophole so obvious it remained invisible. For me, it started with information. I discovered how cheaply people valued their own ignorance. Markets moved on rumors, not facts. Prices surged or collapsed because of perception, not reality. And I realized I didn't need to create the truth. I only needed to ride perception faster than anyone else. The cheat was timing. Buy when panic spread, sell when greed was blind. It sounds simple now, almost like a cliché, but the simplicity was the brilliance. While others trembled, I acted. While they hesitated, I had already moved. I was not smarter than them, I was quicker. The first $1,000 felt like a miracle. The first 10,000 tasted like victory. But money has a way of warping the air around you, making every breath sharper, every choice riskier. Soon I was obsessed, staring at screens deep into the night, my heart pounding in rhythm with shifting numbers. The cheat had worked once, and then twice, and then so many times that I stopped questioning it. By the time the first 100,000 sat glowing in my account, I no longer thought of it as cheating. It was simply my way, the only way that made sense in a world where those who followed rules were trampled by those who wrote them. The millionaire mark came quietly, with no fanfare, no trumpet blast announcing my arrival into the ranks of the rich. It was just another night, another deal, another moment where I saw hesitation in the market and rushed in before anyone else could breathe. And when I looked at the numbers, when I saw the 7 digits gleaming on the screen, I sat in silence. I expected elation, but what I felt was something stranger, vindication. All those years of scraping by, of being told to wait my turn, to work harder, to be patient, all of it crumbled before me. I had found the secret they never wanted to admit. But the cheat carried its shadow. I could not tell anyone, not friends, not family. To speak it aloud would unravel it. To reveal the trick would destroy its power. So I lived with a double life. The quiet figure in ordinary clothes, and the unseen manipulator moving silently in spaces no one else thought to enter. The money built walls around me, safety I had never known, luxuries I had once dreamed of. Yet, every time I looked at my reflection, I saw not the millionaire, but the boy who had once stood at the edge of despair, willing to grasp at anything. The truth is, I never stopped cheating. Once you know the shortcut exists, you can never go back to walking the long road. The danger is intoxicating. It whispers in your ear, promising more if only you dare again. And I always dared. People ask what the secret to my success is, and I smile politely, offering platitudes about hard work and perseverance. But deep inside, I know the truth, that I slipped through a crack in the system, that I bent the rules just enough to get ahead, that I played a game others didn't even realize they were in. The classic cheat that made me a millionaire wasn't about stealing, or lying, or breaking laws outright. It was about seeing differently, acting faster, and never asking permission. It was about choosing to be the wolf while everyone else was waiting in line like sheep. And though I live with the knowledge that everything I built stands on a foundation of shortcuts, I would do it all again. Because in the end, the world doesn't reward the honest. It rewards the bold. And I was bold enough to cheat. Money didn't just change the numbers in my account. It changed the way people looked at me, the way they spoke to me, the way they leaned closer when I entered a room. Old friends resurfaced. smiling with sudden warmth. Strangers sensed wealth like animals smell blood. The world, I learned, bends for money the same way it bends for power. Doors once locked opened wide. Conversations that used to end with dismissal now lingered with respect. I had been invisible all my life, but wealth gave me a spotlight I never asked for, and I admit, I enjoyed it. But what no one tells you is that money is never the end of the cheat. It is only the beginning. Once I crossed into the world of millionaires, I discovered another truth. Everyone cheats. Not in the obvious ways, not with fraud or crime, but with small manipulations, with systems tilted subtly in their favor. Tax loopholes, insider whispers, hidden alliances, things dressed up as strategy or networking. They smiled while they did it, as though there was nothing unusual about twisting the rules into shapes that suited them. Suddenly, I was one of them. My classic cheat had only given me entry into a larger game, a room where everyone was playing with stacked decks. At first, I told myself I would stop, that I had enough. $1 million was more than I ever dreamed of. But greed is a hunger that laughs at fullness. It gnaws at you in quiet moments. What if I doubled it? Tripled it? What if I could build an empire, not just a cushion? And so I cheated again. The riskier plays thrilled me more than the profits. I would watch the numbers rise and fall, my heart climbing with them, and every time I walked away richer, I felt untouchable. Yet, with every win came a shadow. The fear that someone would see through me. The paranoia that the crack I had slipped through would one day close. I started avoiding conversations about my wealth. When people asked what I did, I spoke vaguely, brushing it aside, as though it were unimportant. I couldn't explain to them how fragile it all was, how everything I had built rested on the fact that most of the world was blind while I had chosen to see. There were nights when I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, haunted by the thought that I hadn't earned any of it, that I was nothing more than a clever thief who had stolen from the chaos of the system itself. But then morning would come, and with it, the reminder that no one cared how the money was made. They only cared that it was there. Wealth doesn't come with questions, only with invitations. The cheat became a part of me, stitched into my identity. I couldn't untangle myself from it even if I tried. The more I used it, the more it shaped the way I saw the world. Every problem had a shortcut. Every locked door had a hidden key. I stopped believing in the straight road altogether. Why struggle when there was always a bend, always a trick, always a way to cut ahead? One day, I looked at myself in the mirror, wearing clothes that cost more than my parents once earned in a year, standing in a house that could have swallowed the home of my childhood 10 times over, and I wondered if they would be proud of me or ashamed. Would they see success or deceit? Would they see the boy who had clawed his way out of hunger, or the man who had embraced the shadows of shortcuts? But here is the truth I cannot deny. I would not change it. Not one step. Because for every doubt, every moment of guilt, there is the undeniable fact that I escaped. I escaped the grind, the hopeless weight, the suffocating poverty that would have consumed me. And if the price of that escape was to cheat, then it was a price I was willing to pay. The classic cheat that made me a millionaire was never about money alone. It was about freedom, the kind of freedom that only comes when you stop waiting for permission and take what the world pretends is off limits. And though I live with shadows, though I carry the whispers of doubt, I also carry the weight of wealth, the power of choice, and the knowledge that in the game of survival, only the boldest win. And I, for better or worse, had been bold enough to cheat. Wealth is never quiet for long. At first, I thought I could remain unseen, just a shadow moving between numbers, slipping money from one column to another while the world went about its business. But money has a sound. It hums, it whispers, it draws attention like the sharp cry of a bird in the night. No matter how carefully I tried to hide, the sound of my success began to echo. With wealth came eyes. Banks asked questions, investors offered partnerships, acquaintances tilted their heads with curiosity. I learned quickly that success demanded a mask. I built a story around myself, a half-truth polished enough to shine, vague enough to hide what lay beneath. They believed it, of course they always do. People don't want the truth of money. They want the myth. They want the tale of hard work, vision, perseverance. They don't want to know that sometimes it's nothing more than being clever enough to exploit what others ignore. I began to live two lives. By day, I was respectable, polished, the picture of disciplined success. By night, I was still the same restless creature, watching numbers dance across screens, searching for patterns others missed, slipping in and out of markets like a ghost. The thrill never left me. I had told myself I would stop at 1 million, but the lure of the next win was irresistible. Every victory fed a hunger deeper than my stomach, a hunger rooted in my bones. But there was a cost. The deeper I went, the lonelier I became. Friends could not understand me. Family could not reach me. How could I explain what I had done? How could I tell them that my fortune was not earned in the noble way they imagined, but carved out of loopholes and shortcuts, stolen not from people directly, but from the blindness of a system that allowed it? Even if I confessed, they wouldn't believe me. So I grew silent. And in that silence, the walls thickened around me. The classic cheat had made me wealthy, but it had also made me untouchable, not in the sense of power, but in isolation. I could buy company, but not connection. I could purchase loyalty, but not trust. Every new relationship felt suspect, every handshake tasted of calculation. Were they here for me, or for the glow of my wealth? The doubt coiled around me, even as my empire expanded. I tried to bury the unease under more risks, more plays, bigger bets. If I could not quiet the questions, perhaps I could drown them in profit. And for a while it worked. The numbers grew absurd. What once seemed like an impossible dream became just another figure flashing across a screen. 10 million.
20. More.
And yet, each new milestone felt emptier than the last. The cheat had given me everything I once thought I wanted. But what I had never understood was that it also chained me to it. I could not stop. I could not walk away. To stop was to face the silence, to confront the reality that without the game, without the constant bending of rules, I had nothing left to define me. I was not the genius the world thought I was. I was not the disciplined worker, nor the brilliant strategist. I was only the man who had found a crack in the wall and slipped through. Without that crack, who was I? There were nights when I poured expensive whiskey into a glass and sat in the darkness of a mansion that echoed with emptiness, and I thought about the boy I once was, the one who had first tasted desperation and decided to cheat his way free. Would he be proud of what I had become, or horrified? I could never decide. And yet, each morning, I returned to the game. Because here is the unspoken truth of every classic cheat. Once you taste it, you cannot untaste it. Once you see how the rules bend, you cannot go back to believing in the rules at all. The cheat made me a millionaire. The cheat made me powerful. The cheat made me free. But it also made me its prisoner. The strange thing about wealth is how quickly it becomes normal. At first, every dollar felt like a miracle, every luxury a treasure. But over time, the extraordinary dulled into routine. I no longer marveled at the house with too many rooms. I no longer paused before sliding into the leather seat of a car that cost more than my childhood neighborhood. I no longer cared about the glint of gold, the weight of watches, or the hiss of champagne. The cheat had made me a millionaire, then more than a millionaire, but it had also stolen from me the very wonder I thought I was chasing. What I had left was the game itself. The rush. The knife-edge moments when I risked more than I should, when numbers dipped and surged, when I felt as if the entire world hung suspended on my next decision. It wasn't money I craved anymore, it was that sensation, that burning jolt of being alive, of being the only one who saw the pattern before it broke. But the deeper I sank, the more fragile I became. I couldn't let anyone too close. I couldn't share my methods. My wealth depended on secrecy, on silence. And so, I became a man of locked doors and coded accounts, a man who smiled in public but lived in constant vigilance. I hired lawyers, accountants, advisors, all people who pretended to know the full truth, but none of them ever did. I trusted no one, not even those I paid to protect me. Whispers began to follow me. In certain circles, I was spoken of as clever, lucky, maybe even brilliant. In others, I was a ghost, a rumor, the kind of figure that people half believed and half doubted. And sometimes, in the dead of night, I ask myself which version of me was real. It's strange. People envy wealth, they envy freedom, but they never see the shadow stitched to it. They never see the paranoia, the endless questions. When would the system close the loophole I used? When would someone sharper come along and out-cheat the cheat? When would I fall? Because all cheats, no matter how clever, eventually collapse. That's the part no one tells you. Every shortcut leads to a wall. You can only run fast enough, long enough, before the world demands its due. I began to dream of it collapse. Dreams where the numbers turned red, where everything vanished in an instant. Dreams where the door burst open and men in suits dragged me out into the light, my secrets spilling across headlines, my empire turned to ash. I would wake sweating, heart racing, clutching at the sheets as though they might save me. And in the mornings after those dreams, I would swear to myself, one more time, just one more play, then I'll stop. But I never stopped. I couldn't. The cheat had become more than a tool. It had become my identity. Without it, I was nothing but an ordinary man again, and that was a fate I feared more than ruin itself. Better to burn bright, I thought, than to fade back into the obscurity I had clawed my way out of. Some days I wonder if the system already knows about me. If somewhere, in some quiet office, a file with my name is growing thicker, waiting for the right moment to snap shut around me. Other days, I convince myself that I am untouchable, that I will die with my secrets intact, leaving behind only the legend of the man who outwitted the game itself. And maybe that's what the classic cheat really is, not a trick, not a loophole, not even a strategy. It's a curse. A deal with the unseen forces of ambition, granting you everything you ever wanted while chaining you to the very thing you thought you could control. I tell myself I won't fall, that I am different, that I will cheat longer, cheat better, cheat until even collapse cannot reach me. But the truth, the quiet truth that rattles in the back of my skull, is that one day I will pay. Until then, I keep playing, because I cannot stop, because the cheat made me rich, and the cheat owns me.